episode of Mind Over Masculinity, where we peel back the layers of what it means to live, lead, and think differently in today's world. So, dear listeners, think back for a second. Like, when was the last time someone asked you a question that stopped you in your tracks? A question that didn't just scratch the surface, but actually opened a door that you hadn't noticed before. Yes. And here's the thing, like, as kids, curiosity comes naturally. But somewhere along the way, when we become experts, leaders, or uh, grown ups, we start asking fewer genuine questions. And without curiosity, we risk repeating the same patterns, recycling the same solutions, and even, I would say, silencing our own potential. And dear listeners, today I'm joined by a lovely guest. Please welcome Joe Lalley. So, welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Excited to dive in.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion today, I'll quickly love to introduce you with uh, our lovely guest, Joe. So, Joe is a writer, speaker, and innovation leader who has helped organizations like Meta, Pfizer, Cisco, JetBlue, and many others rediscover the transformative power of curiosity. So, his upcoming book,
Avik, I think I lost you. Are you there?
can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So, I'll just introduce you again. Okay.
It cut out when you were just about to say you said his upcoming book, and then it cut.
Oh, okay. 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 So, from there we'll go. Okay. So his upcoming book, dear listeners, what I was saying is questions to learn, like how curiosity can transform your career, team, and the organizations, is a practical guide to rekindling curiosity in workplaces and in life. Yeah. And Joe doesn't talk about asking better questions. He shows us like how curiosity can rebuild the trust, spark creativity, and even change the way that we experience the world around us. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's dive in and welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
So, Joe, um, according to you, what does curiosity mean to you personally? I mean, beyond that definition in the textbook. Yeah.
Yeah. Curiosity, I think it's a doorway to connection, creativity, compromise, common ground. All of these things that can be achieved by using curiosity to ask questions are really transformative for teams, for an individual thinking about their career, and for entire organizations. What I've seen in the organizations that I've worked with and consulted for, the ones that make big breakthroughs are able to reach different levels of thinking are the ones that remain curious about their challenges, and their opportunities. The ones who don't remain curious tend to do the same things and repeat a lot of the same mistakes.
Ah. Mhm. So, was there a kind of defining moment when you realized that curiosity wasn't just a kind of nice trait, but it's a core skill for the leadership in the life?
There have been a few, but I'll talk about a couple that stand out for me. So, about, let's see, 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to attend Stanford University's D School. It's a design thinking boot camp. It's a 3 day experience where lots of professionals who were kind of like me go to the Stanford campus and learn and apply design thinking on a real world project. Up to that point in my career, I felt like I was doing a pretty good job. Uh, my focus was designing and building digital products. And I spent a lot of my time writing requirements based on what was technically possible and matched with business needs. And I thought that was great. I went to this program and I realized that I was not asking questions or being curious about the customers. I was never
Mm.
factoring their needs into my decisions. So I came back from that program totally changed, and started to incorporate more curiosity, more questioning into everything I did. And I saw bits and pieces of that throughout my career. Definitely some peaks and valleys for me, but if I could pick a moment, that's probably where it really started.
Mm. I mean, that's such a kind of, I'd say, grounding way to start because uh, it reminds us curiosity that it's not abstract, it's lived, and it's a shift that when a question suddenly becomes a kind of tool and not just a habit. So true, true. And I'm also very curious about, like, you have worked with some massive organizations like Meta, Pfizer, Cisco, JetBlue, and all. So how do you see the curiosity, or maybe the lack of it, that impact the culture of these big environments?
Yeah, I see really good examples and some not so good examples. The teams that are curious about their problems remain open to new information, and that has to exist from the top level to the bottom level. So, teams that remain curious, I see that they are trusting teams. They are comfortable challenging each other, but in positive and truly curious ways. They're comfortable asking why. They're comfortable asking a question they might not like the answer to.
Mm.
So those sorts of organizations, they come up with new ideas, they make big breakthroughs. The ones that I've worked with that maybe aren't doing those sorts of things oftentimes just don't have a good positive team culture. Curiosity is not necessarily encouraged or celebrated, and teams may use questions for negative motives even. I've seen that where sometimes questions can be used to show off one's own knowledge or expose someone else's lack of knowledge or just to show that you've spoken up in a meeting, versus just purely curious questions. So I see a really big divide between organizations that practice true curiosity and welcome it and ones that don't.
Hmm. Understood. So also, like, do you think that the smaller and scrappier teams actually do a better job of staying curious to the uh, compared to the big corporates?
I think they can. I think it's a little bit easier for a smaller, scrappier team to remain curious. I think one of the things that I've seen is the bigger the team, the bigger the organization, the more specialized roles become, and the more kind of um, solo solo people tend to work uh, across organizations. So when somebody just has one job, one focus area, they have a hard time being curious about other things because they're just focused on their lane. In smaller teams, smaller organizations, people have to do multiple jobs and they're able to actually see how those jobs connect with each other. And they can connect the dots in ways that I think larger organizations have a hard time with. So I do think there's an opportunity for smaller, scrappier teams to be more curious. There's also oftentimes, and I know I felt this as a small business owner, I started my own company 5 years ago, and there's just a lot of pressure on a smaller team or a smaller organization to deliver. We don't have a big, long standing organization behind us, in case we make some mistakes. So we have to really be curious, make sure we're asking and trying to answer important questions.
Okay, okay. So I think, like, many listeners who work in structured environments can relate to that because the tension is between the process and the possibility. So Yeah. And about your book, you talk about questioning without judgment. So, why do you think that so many of us self censor our questions, whether um, out of fear, ego, or insecurity?
Yeah, so I think a lot of this starts to creep in around maybe the teenage years. When we're younger, when we're toddlers, we just don't have a whole lot of self-consciousness around questions. We just want to know, we don't know, so we ask. But around teenage years, I think it's this self-consciousness starts to creep in where maybe I don't want to draw attention to myself or show that I don't know something. But at the same time, we're learning a new skill. We're learning through observation and something that we're developing. So I think that that self-consciousness creeps in, and then fast forward to adults and people early in their careers. I think it really, really depends on the environment. Um, an environment where bosses and managers have a huge part in this, but an environment where uh, hierarchy rules, where every decision has to go all the way up to the highest ranking person on the team. Curiosity is not really at play there because what I see teams do is instead of wondering about how might we make this good, they're wondering, is this what the boss would want? Uh, and I see that happen a lot in organizations. And I was in these organizations. I even contributed to that sort of a culture at times. Um, but, it really, really has a lot to do with the people around you and, the culture.
Ah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, so what's the practical shift can someone make in their next meeting to break through that fear?
Yeah, so find some allies. Uh, for me, if I was in an environment where I didn't feel like questions were welcome, you know, the the kitchen by the coffee machine was always kind of a debrief area. And I started to learn that other people had similar questions that I did. So I felt less alone. So find some allies and then find opportunities where you can, put people in a good position to answer things. So questions sometimes are viewed as accusations. For example, why did you do that? Sounds like an accusation versus why did you do that? Sounds curious. So thinking about your questions, how you can phrase them and what kind of tone you can use in a meeting
Mm,
can really, really make a big difference. It may take some time. It did for me. I had to go through a few moments where I did actually regret asking a question because, you know,
mm,
and 10 heads in the meeting swiveled my way and I immediately questioned my decision. But stick with it, I think, and start small. Start with some friendly faces.
right. Understood. Yep. Yep. That's really encouraging, I'd say, because it shows that curiosity is not just a kind of mindset; it's a practice.
Mm.
So, yeah, and also, it might sound contradictory, but actually not. Like some people argue that curiosity slows things down,
Yeah.
and that too many questions derail meetings or delay the decisions. So, how do you respond to those critics?
Yeah, I hear it a lot. The most common area I hear it in is if I'm working with a team and we're looking to build a new product for customers or improve a product for customers, my inclination is always, well, let's talk to the customers. Let's learn from them. Let's see what it's like for them. And sometimes the reaction is, well, we don't have time for that. That's going to take us too long. We think we know what they want, so let's just go down that path. What usually happens is you go down that path, and then the first time you're really learning if it's the right path is when it's a lot more fully formed. And many times it's off the mark. So you end up losing a ton of time because you have to go back and redo a lot of that work. So that's one area I see it in. The other thing that I see in terms of people thinking that questions kind of delay is just the definition of a question or of curiosity. So a question doesn't you don't have to sort of sit in a meeting and continue to just ask questions. It is important to take a stand and try something. So once you've learned a little bit about some customer behaviors, then you can build a really small, really early version of some solution. And then you can put it in front of them and see how they react. You're still being curious. You're just being curious at a next phase. So you can use it all the way through, and you should continue to use that mindset all the way through to when a product is live and in front of people, because behaviors change, situations change. And if you're not paying attention to that, then people may stop using your product.
Hmm, that's quite pretty. Yeah. Like, is there a point where asking questions becomes kind of unproductive, or maybe even a form of avoidance? What do you say?
I don't, I don't think so. I think that there's a phrase that people throw around in different organizations, decide and commit, or disagree and commit. Because sometimes questions can lead to debates. People can have different opinions about things. I do think it's really important to have an answer and then see if that answer ends up being right. So instead of debating the right answer, debate how you're going to determine if it's right. So I think that kind of question asking is healthy.
Mm,
There can be unhealthy question
mm,
situations where teams can kind of just challenge each other back and forth, sort of try to trip each other up. I have seen this, I have done this, and that can be really, really unproductive. But if the goal of the question is to get to a next level of understanding,
mm,
then I think it's always productive.
mm. Exactly. Oh. And any suggestion you want to give to the listeners today?
Any suggestion in terms of how to kind of foster that environment, or
Yes.
yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think
Mm-hmm.
create a culture of just rapid prototyping. Um, I think that if you can build a culture where you move in small increments, and this doesn't have to be software, this can be services, this can be processes, but working in small increments versus let's have a meeting, let's talk about some things, we'll go away for 3 weeks, we'll build the thing, and then we'll look at it again. Too much time passes. So if you can build a culture of just smaller increments,
Mm-hmm.
it brings people in, it reduces the number of mistakes, and I think gets you to the right answer. That a comparison I've used is, let's say you're standing on one side of a soccer field and you want to kick a ball all the way to the other side into the other goal. You can wind up, kick the ball as hard as you can. You might make it in, but chances are you're probably not going to. Or you can take that ball and you can dribble it up the field, make your way all the way there, get pretty close, and then kick it in the goal, and you're probably going to make the goal. So, working in that second way, I think, is a really good way to get there.
Amazing, amazing. Lovely. So, Joe, thank you so much for reminding us that curiosity isn't just about a childhood instinct that we outgrow, but it's a lifelong engine for growth, connection, and the innovation. And here's what I am taking away is a single well-timed question that can cut through the fear, unlock creativity, and even rebuild trust, but only if we are brave enough to ask. So, for everyone who is tuning in, don't let your curiosity atrophy, right? Don't self censor the questions that could change your work, your relationships, and even your entire life. So, instead of what should I say, try asking, what do I need to learn here, right? And if this conversation has sparked something in you, then share it with a colleague, friend, or someone that you love the most, or even your team as well. Curiosity is contagious, and the more we spread it, the more innovative, human, and connected our world becomes. And Joe, like, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
The two best ways are just go to my website, which is just joelalley.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there, and I'm always interested in talking about these topics, so feel free to message me.
Perfect. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host, Avik, reminding you that strength isn't in always knowing the answers, but it's in daring to ask the better questions. So, thank you so much.